Who authorized you to remove his project before the judges even saw it? Daniel Mercer's voice cut through the gym as Noah pointed at the red-circled equation in his battered blue notebook. One trembling finger aimed toward the dark model on the table. Dr. Evelyn Grant stopped behind the judges' row. Claire Holloway reached for the notebook with a careful smile. Mr. Mercer, step away. This is an academic matter. Noah tightened his grip. She already knew which wire would fail. 3 hours earlier, the Roosevelt Public Middle School gym smelled of floor wax, warm plastic, and the faint burnt metal odor of overloaded extension cords. Fluorescent lights hummed above rows of polished displays. Robotic arms, hydroponic towers, miniature wind farms built from clean acrylic and expensive kits. Daniel moved his yellow caution sign around a thin crescent of water near the center aisle, guiding his mop beneath folding chairs while parents carried coffee and students rehearsed speeches. He noticed Noah Bennett because the boy was standing still while everyone else rushed. Noah's table had been pushed beside the equipment room door, half hidden behind a black stage curtain. A red card reading under review had been taped diagonally across his printed name. Noah held a blue notebook against his chest, his oil-darkened fingertips pressed into its worn cover. On the table, a small motor assembled from mismatched metal, salvaged wire, and a cloudy plastic housing gave a sharp mechanical whine. A blue-white light flickered once inside the model, then vanished. The sound was wrong. Not the fading grind of a dying motor, but the clean snap of a connection losing pressure. Daniel's hand stopped on the mop handle. Before he could step closer, an event worker unlocked the wheels beneath Noah's table and began pushing it toward the storage room. Noah followed without speaking, his shoulders pulled inward. Claire walked beside them in a navy blazer, her expression composed enough to look compassionate from across the gym. "We're simply protecting the integrity of the competition," she told a nearby judge. "The project shows signs of adult-level engineering, and it appears unstable. Under secondary load." A tiny silver screw dropped from beneath the model, struck the varnished floor, and rolled through the legs of the passing crowd. It stopped against Daniel's steel-toed shoe. He bent, picked it up, and saw a faint fresh scrape circling its threads. The worker pushed again. Daniel placed one foot against the table's locking wheel. He did not raise his voice. "A student project under review stays with the student until someone documents the transfer." Claire's smile remained, but the muscles beside her mouth tightened. "Daniel, please return to your assigned area. We have procedures for this." "Then there should be a signed form." Noah looked at him for the first time. His breathing came shallow and fast, but he loosened one arm from around the notebook and opened it just enough to check a hand-drawn diagram. Daniel saw 6 weeks of dated entries, grease stains pressed into the paper, and a final equation circled in red. At the edge of that page, a blue ink smear crossed the margin like the print of a damp finger. Daniel placed the screw inside a clear lost property sleeve, wrote the time on the label, and set it on the table where Noah could see it. He never touched the motor. Across the gym, Dr. Grant glanced over, irritated by the delay, then paused when she noticed the unsigned red card covering Noah's name. Claire pulled the curtain farther across the table. "The judges have already been informed," she said. Daniel looked down at the card before it disappeared. Printed beneath the words under review was a timestamp, 6:58 a.m., more than an hour before the science fair doors had opened. Daniel kept his eyes on the timestamp beneath the red card. 6:58. Claire folded her hands over the clipboard. The concern was identified before the doors opened. By which judge? The gym's fluorescent lights reflected off the clear sleeve holding the small silver screw, and the plastic crinkled softly when Noah touched its edge. Around them, microphone checks and bursts of applause continued, as if the corner beside the equipment room door belonged to another world. Claire turned toward the registration table without answering Daniel's question. "Let's move this discussion somewhere less disruptive." She led them to a narrow space behind the scorer's station, where a folding table had been crowded with coffee cups, extension cords, and stacks of judging forms. Noah remained standing until Daniel quietly pulled out a chair for him. Claire did not offer Daniel one. This is about academic integrity. Then show us the allegation. You are not part of this review. A printer clicked behind the table, feeding out another page with a dry mechanical rasp. Daniel rested both hands at his sides instead of reaching for the paper. The sleeves of his blue-gray work shirt were darkened at the cuffs from mop water, and Claire's gaze paused there before moving to the keys hanging from his belt. Mr. Mercer, you had access to the building before students arrived, she said. You also had access to the equipment room. Noah looked up sharply. Daniel saw the fear move across the boy's face before Noah lowered his eyes again. So did every staff member with a master key, Daniel said. That isn't an accusation. It's a list. Claire's expression softened into something that might have looked kind from the judge's table. No one is accusing you personally. We are trying to protect Noah from the consequences of presenting work he may not be prepared to explain. Martin Vale stepped closer, adjusting the silver cuff beneath his tailored jacket. His company logo appeared on the banners above the stage and on the gift bags arranged beside the awards table. Perhaps the compassionate thing, he said, is to let the boy step back quietly. There is no reason to turn this into a public embarrassment. Noah's fingers closed around the blue notebook until the bent corners pressed into his palms. Daniel noticed Lily at the end of the scorer's table, small and still beside a stack of programs. Two parents behind her spoke in voices meant to be private but not quiet enough. That's the janitor. Maybe he built it after hours. Daniel heard Lily's breath catch. He could have turned around. He could have told them about the years he had spent drafting load systems and testing small motors until dawn. Instead, he moved half a step so Noah no longer stood alone beneath their stares. Has he been given the concern in writing? Daniel asked. Claire slid the fresh page from the printer and placed it face down. That will be handled through the school. Has he been told what rule he broke? The judges have already agreed that the project requires review. Dr. Grant, who had approached without anyone noticing, stopped beside the table. Her badge swung once against her charcoal jacket. I haven't agreed to anything, she said. The silence lasted only a second, but Claire's thumb pressed hard enough against her clipboard to whiten the nail. Then her professional smile returned. Of course, I meant the organizing committee had reached a preliminary consensus. Dr. Grant looked from Claire to the unsigned red card still visible through the opening in the curtain. She did not apologize to Daniel or invite Noah back into the competition. She only asked, "Where is the written referral?" Claire turned toward a stack of forms. "It's being prepared." Daniel glanced at the printed presentation schedule lying beside Martin Vale's coffee cup. Noah's name had been crossed out in blue ink, and another student had been moved into his slot. In the bottom corner, a system line showed the schedule had been edited at 6:52 a.m., 6 minutes before the red card was printed. "Daniel," Claire said gently, "you should return to your assigned area before this becomes a personnel issue." A security officer waited a few feet away, one hand resting near his radio, not threatening but ready. Daniel looked at Noah. The boy's face had gone pale, and the notebook was trembling against his chest. Daniel reached into his lunch bag, removed an unopened bottle of water, and set it beside him. "Keep the notebook with you," he said. Claire extended her hand. "Actually, I should hold that for safekeeping." Noah pulled it closer. Lily finally spoke, her voice small but clear. "You said you never looked inside it." Dr. Grant's eyes shifted to Claire's outstretched hand, then to the blue ink stain on the folded corner of page 18 showing beneath Noah's thumb. Dr. Grant's gaze rested on the blue ink stain for half a second, longer than courtesy required, but Claire withdrew her hand and smoothed the front of her blazer as if nothing unusual had happened. "We can revisit chain of custody later," she said. "For now, Noah needs space." Daniel did not argue. He picked up the unopened water bottle, handed it to Noah, then lifted the clear sleeve containing the silver screw and asked the security officer to initial the time he had written across the label. Claire gave a quiet sigh. "That level of formality isn't necessary." "Maybe not," Daniel said, "but it costs nothing." The officer hesitated, then signed. Behind the black stage curtain, the noise of the science fair softened into applause, microphone static, and the hollow scrape of folding chairs. Daniel found 3 mismatched chairs near a rack of theater flats and set them around a narrow utility table. Noah sat with the blue notebook on his knees. Lily climbed into the chair beside him and tucked her sneakers beneath the metal rung. Daniel opened his lunch bag. Inside was 1 turkey sandwich cut in half, an apple with a bruise near the stem, and a folded notice from the electric company he had not opened in front of Lily. He placed 1 sandwich half in front of Noah and the other in front of his daughter. "Dad, what about you?" Lily asked. "I had breakfast." She looked at him the way children look when they know an adult is making a fact smaller than it is. Without saying anything, she broke off a corner of her sandwich and put it back into the lunch bag for him. Daniel let it stay there. Noah did not touch his food. His thumb kept rubbing the bent edge of the blue cover until the cardboard fibers lifted. "They already decided," he said. "Maybe," Daniel answered. "But they haven't heard you. I can't talk like Tyler Vale." "Good. He's already doing that job." Noah looked up, uncertain whether Daniel had made a joke. A faint smile moved across Lily's face and disappeared. Daniel set his silver mechanical pencil on the table between them. Its barrel carried a shallow dent near the clip, and for a moment he saw his late wife's hand sliding it back across their kitchen table years ago, telling him not every broken thing needed to be hidden before Lily woke up. The memory passed without announcement. He turned the pencil so the point faced himself, not Noah. "Show me the first time it failed." Noah opened the notebook. Daniel did not take it from him. Page after page held cramped sketches, crossed out numbers, and small blocks of time written in red ink. On 1 page, an oily thumbprint darkened the margin beside a drawing of the recycled motor. On another, a coffee-colored ring touched the corner without covering the calculation. The marks were too uneven to look staged. "What happened here?" Daniel asked. Noah swallowed. "It made a high sound." "Then what?" "The light pulsed." "Then what did you change?" Noah pointed to a rough diagram. "I moved the load return, but I put it too close to the casing, so it got hot." His voice was barely above the hum of the vending machine behind the curtain, but it was his voice. Daniel leaned back instead of leaning over the page. "Tell it that way. That's not scientific. It's what happened." Noah looked at the notebook again. Daniel slid the sandwich a little closer to him. 3 things. What you heard. What you saw. What you changed. Noah tried once and stopped. He tried again, using shorter words. By the 3rd attempt, his shoulders had lowered. Lily listened with both hands around her water bottle, nodding whenever he reached the end of a sentence. Daniel never corrected a term. He only asked Noah to slow down when fear made him skip ahead. At the curtain opening, Dr. Grant appeared, unnoticed at first. She saw Daniel sitting back with empty hands while Noah traced his own work. She heard the boy describe a 2-beat flicker before the motor cut out, then point to a dated entry from 5 weeks earlier. Her expression did not soften, but she stopped walking. Claire stepped in behind her. "This is exactly the concern," she said quietly. "He's coaching him." Daniel closed his lunch bag and stood. "Then test him without me." Noah's fingers tightened around the notebook, but after a moment he nodded. "I can do that." Claire reached again for the blue cover. "The notebook should stay with the committee." Daniel lifted the clear evidence sleeve instead, and placed it beside Dr. Grant. "The screw stays documented. The notebook stays with the student unless you issue a receipt." Dr. Grant looked from the signed sleeve to the 6 weeks of dated pages, then to Daniel's untouched pencil. Claire had called his kindness interference, but by refusing to touch the work, he had preserved the first thing that might prove Noah had made it himself. Claire's accusation changed the temperature behind the curtain. "He's been coaching him." He asked 3 questions. "He has an engineering background." Dr. Grant looked at Daniel's untouched mechanical pencil, then at Noah's open notebook. The applause from the gym came through the curtain in soft bursts, while the fluorescent tube above the utility table buzzed like an insect trapped in glass. kindness had bought Noah a few steady breaths, but it had also given Claire a cleaner story to tell. She asked the principal to bring Daniel's personnel file. By the time they moved into the small conference room beside the gym office, a printed resume lay between the coffee rings and judging forms. The line Claire tapped was 11 years old. Mechanical design engineer. "This is relevant," she said. "A trained engineer has been alone in this building, has access to the equipment room, and has now rehearsed the student's explanation." Daniel stood near the door in his damp work shirt. Noah sat beside Dr. Grant, the blue notebook held flat under both palms. Lily waited outside the glass wall with Daniel's lunch bag against her knees. "Did you build any part of this project?" Dr. Grant asked. "No." "Did you give Noah the final equation?" "No." "Did you tell him what to say?" Daniel glanced at Noah before answering. "I asked him to describe what he heard, what he saw, and what he changed." Dr. Grant wrote each response without looking up. Her suspicion was not cruel. Daniel understood that. His old job meant he had the skill. His keys meant he had access. His decision to stay with Noah meant he had opportunity. Those facts did not prove Claire's story, but they made it possible. Claire opened the notebook with gloved hands while Noah watched every page turn. She stopped at page 18. Folded corner marked the sheet where the phrase secondary load loop appeared beside a sketch of the return circuit. Blue ink stained the margin, and a narrow rectangular dent pressed into the paper near the binding. "This could easily have been added later," Claire said, "by an adult trying to create a development trail." Daniel did not reach for the notebook. He stepped sideways until the page sat beneath the white beam of the desk lamp. The light caught the grooves in the paper. The blue stain was not flat. It had collected inside the indentation, darker along one edge, as if wet ink had been pressed beneath something hard. "What made that mark?" Dr. Grant asked. Claire leaned closer. "Probably a paper clip. These notebooks get handled." "By whom?" Daniel asked. The room slowed. Claire's eyes moved from the page to him. "I may have briefly reviewed the notebook during an earlier safety check." Noah lifted his head. "You said you never opened it." His voice was quiet, but the words landed cleanly. Claire gave him a patient smile. "I said I had not reviewed your work in a judging capacity. Those are different things." "When was the safety check?" Daniel asked. "Last night." "What time?" "Sometime after school." Claire turned a page too quickly, then closed the notebook halfway. Dr. Grant placed 2 fingers on the cover before it shut. "Leave it open." Claire released it. The principal returned with a building access report and set it beside Daniel's file. Claire's badge had entered the science wing at 7:43 the previous evening. No safety inspection form existed for that time. The only report in the folder had been created at 7:17 that morning, 19 minutes after the red card was printed. Claire's explanation still had room to survive. She could have checked the room informally and filed the paperwork later. She could have seen the phrase without understanding it. The blue ink could have come from any pen. Dr. Grant said none of this aloud, but her silence made clear she was measuring every possibility. Daniel noticed something else. The rectangular dent beside the phrase was too wide for a normal paperclip. He looked at Claire's clipboard where a blue plastic index tab protruded beneath the metal clamp. The tab had the same width as the mark on page 18. He did not accuse her. He only asked, "If you saw that page last night, how did you know this morning that the failure would be under secondary load before anyone tested the model?" Claire answered at once. Because Noah had never completed a full load run. Noah's fingers stopped moving. Dr. Grant's pen stopped too. That detail did not appear on the display board, the entry form, or any document Claire had admitted reading. It existed only in the notebook and in the private test log from Noah's classroom. Daniel looked from the blue stain to the access report, then to the timestamp on the safety form. The clue did not prove who had touched the wire, but it proved Claire knew more about the project than she had told them, and somewhere between page 18 and the red card printed at 6:58, that knowledge had become a decision. Dr. Grant did not answer Daniel's question. She closed the access report, placed her palm on Noah's blue notebook, and asked the principal to bring a sealed component kit from the judge's table. Claire's smile held, but only just. I'm not sure another demonstration is appropriate while authorship is under review. That is why it will be controlled, Dr. Grant said. No prior configuration. No coaching. No contact. The air conditioner clicked on above them, pushing the smell of coffee and warm copier toner through the small conference room. Daniel looked at Noah. The boy's face had gone pale again, but his hands were no longer hiding the notebook. Can you try? Daniel asked. Noah swallowed. If you're not in the room. Claire turned toward him. You don't have to prove anything under pressure. I want to. Dr. Grant moved the test to the preparation room beside the stage, where a narrow observation window looked onto a steel work table. She selected a resistor from a tamper-sealed plastic pouch, then asked the school technician to replace the original part while Noah watched from 3 feet away. Daniel remained in the hall with Lily. The blue-gray shoulder of his work shirt reflected faintly in the glass. Inside, Noah was shown. The new component, but not the meter display. Dr. Grant gave him 1 minute. Tell me what you expect before the system starts. Noah stared at the model. His right thumb rubbed the worn edge of the notebook, then stopped. The motor will sound higher. What else? The needle will move left twice before it settles. Claire folded her arms. That is a very specific prediction. Noah looked at the cloudy motor housing. The left side will warm first. The technician switched on the power. A thin whine rose from the motor. The hidden meter clicked once, twice. Dr. Grant uncovered it. The needle trembled exactly where Noah had said, then steadied. The technician touched an infrared reader to the casing. The left side registered warmer. A metal chair leg scraped across the floor outside and then stopped. Even through the glass, Daniel could hear the air conditioner breathing between them. Claire placed one hand lightly on the table. He may have been prepared for this type of substitution. The component was sealed, Dr. Grant said. The principle could still have been rehearsed. Before anyone answered, the model gave a sharp snap and went dark. Noah flinched but did not step back. A wire had slipped from beneath the load terminal. Claire exhaled as though the failure had settled the matter. There. This is what I was concerned about. The connection has been loose since this morning. Daniel's eyes narrowed at the exposed terminal. He did not enter the room until Dr. Grant opened the door and asked what he saw. He crouched beside the table without touching the wire. The retaining screw sat high above the metal plate, its threads bright where they should have been dulled by pressure. Don't tighten it, he said. Claire's voice stayed measured. Mr. Mercer, it is a loose screw, not a crime scene. Daniel looked at the technician. Photograph it first. Straight down. Then from the side. Why? Because if it backed out from vibration, the wear should be uneven. If it was turned, the scrape pattern will circle the threads. Claire stepped closer. We are making this far more dramatic than necessary. Daniel remained on one knee, his hands resting open on his thighs. Then a photograph won't hurt anyone. Dr. Grant held out her hand to the technician. Use the district tablet. Save the original. Claire's fingers tightened around her clipboard. The technician photographed the terminal, measured the exposed threads, then checked the outlet log. No voltage drop. No overload. No electrical fault. Dr. Grant looked again at Noah. Your prediction was accurate before the connection failed. Noah nodded once. His shoulders loosened by a fraction. Daniel could have pointed at Claire's mistake. Instead, he turned to Noah and said, You did your part. Let the record do the rest. Lily pressed her palm against the hallway glass, not waving, just letting him know she was there. A student photographer passing the door paused when he saw the open terminal. That wasn't loose earlier, he said. Everyone turned. He pulled out his phone and found a picture taken during setup, Noah's model visible in the background beneath the gym lights. The timestamp read 6:40 a.m. Dr. Grant enlarged the image until the retaining screw filled the screen. It sat flush against the plate, 18 minutes before the red under review card had been printed. The photograph stayed on the district tablet. The retaining screw enlarged until its silver head looked almost white beneath the gym lights. At 6:40 a.m., it had been seated flush. At 6:58, the red under review card had been printed. Dr. Grant placed the tablet beside Noah's blue notebook and said, "No one touches the model until we establish the timeline." Claire nodded too quickly. "Of course. We can resolve this privately after the ceremony." "The ceremony can wait." The preparation room door remained open as the principal brought in the maintenance log, the presentation schedule, and the original safety report. Paper slid across the steel table in a slow, dry whisper. Daniel stood beside Noah, close enough that the boy could see him but far enough that no one could accuse him of directing an answer. Lily sat in the hallway with her knees drawn up, watching through the glass. Dr. Grant began with the smallest fact. The student photograph showed the screw secure at 6:40. The digital presentation schedule showed Noah's name removed at 6:52. The red card had been printed at 6:58. A hallway camera showed Claire and an event aide pushing Noah's table toward the equipment room door at 7:12. The safety report claiming an unstable load connection had not been created until 7:17. "That can happen during setup," Claire said. "Staff often act before paperwork catches up." Daniel looked at the maintenance log. "Who reported the fault?" The principal turned the page. "No call. No work order. No technician assignment." The first maintenance notation appeared at 7:24, after the table had already been moved and the project labeled. The fluorescent light above them flickered once, then steadied. No one spoke until the printer in the office stopped running, leaving only the low motor hum from the gym beyond the wall. Dr. Grant tapped the timeline with one finger. "This proves the decision came before the formal safety finding." "It proves the report was entered late," Claire replied. Her voice remained professional, but a pulse had started beating at the base of her throat. Noah's project had been inconsistent in testing. "I made a preventive judgment." "Based on which test?" Daniel asked. Claire turned toward him. "The full load run from yesterday." Noah's head lifted. "I didn't do a full load run yesterday." Claire blinked. "The earlier run, then?" "Monday," Noah said. "And Mr. Lewis was there." It was a child's correction, simple and immediate. Dr. Grant wrote it down. Daniel noticed Claire glance toward the dark camera dome in the corner of the hallway. She reached for her phone, then stopped when she saw Dr. Grant watching. The principal searched the school's media archive for the classroom recording Noah had mentioned in his notebook. The folder was there. So were thumbnails from previous tests. But the file labeled Monday Load Test showed a gray icon and one word beneath it. "Deleted." "Could be automatic retention," Claire said. "These systems purge drafts." The district technician, called in by Dr. Grant, shook his head. "Not after 4 days." He opened the audit panel. The file had been manually removed at 7:04 that morning, 6 minutes after the red card was printed. The report showed only that a teacher-level administrative account had performed the deletion. The standard screen did not identify the individual user. Claire pressed her lips together, then arranged the papers into a neater stack. "This is becoming speculative. We are connecting ordinary administrative events because emotions are high." Daniel could have pointed at her. He could have said the sequence aloud until every person in the room heard how impossible it sounded. Instead, he took the sheet of craft paper from beneath the maintenance forms and laid it flat. Using his silver mechanical pencil, he wrote only the times. 6:40, 6:52, 6:58, 7:04, 7:12, 7:17. Then he handed the pencil to Noah. "Put each piece where it belongs." Noah taped the photo beneath 6:40, the schedule beneath 6:52, and the red card beneath 6:58. His hands trembled less with every strip of tape. Daniel did not write Claire's name anywhere. "Why leave it blank?" Lily asked from the doorway. Daniel looked at the empty space above the timeline. "Because evidence should say what happened before we decide who did it." Dr. Grant's eyes shifted toward him, not with trust yet, but with recognition. He was protecting the truth from becoming revenge. The technician pulled up the hallway camera log. There was another irregularity. Between 7:01 and 7:06, the camera outside Noah's classroom had changed from continuous recording to motion-only mode. That setting required administrative access. Claire wiped one thumb across the edge of her phone and said, "We should stop before this damages reputations unnecessarily." Dr. Grant did not answer. She asked the technician to preserve every original file, every access log, and every deleted item. Then Noah touched the edge of the gray video icon. "It recorded automatically for my portfolio," he said. "If somebody deleted it, doesn't the system keep a copy somewhere?" The technician opened the cloud backup panel. A single frozen thumbnail appeared. Claire standing beside Noah's model, one hand on the blue notebook, while the classroom clock behind her reads 6:47 a.m. By then, the gym microphone had announced that the award ceremony would begin in 5 minutes, and Dr. Grant understood the truth was now too heavy to keep behind a closed door. The science fair stage had been reset for the awards ceremony, but no trophies stood beneath the Roosevelt Public Middle School banner. Instead, a long folding table faced the bleachers, its gray surface covered with the worn blue notebook, the clear sleeve holding the silver screw, the printed schedule, the red under review card, and a district laptop connected to the projector. Parents lowered themselves onto metal benches. Students sat beside their displays in uneasy rows. Daniel entered through the side aisle in his janitor uniform, one cuff still dark from mop water, Lily holding 2 fingers of his left hand. Noah walked on his other side with Dr. Grant, his shoulders tight but his notebook no longer hidden against his chest. Claire stood behind the microphone in her navy blazer, composed beneath the white stage lights. Martin Vale sat in the front row beneath the banner carrying his company's logo. Dr. Grant did not take the microphone from Claire. She stood near the laptop, arms at her sides, waiting to see what Claire would say while every face in the gym turned toward the stage. "This review concerns safety and authorship," Claire began. "Not punishment." Her voice carried evenly through the speakers. A talented student presented work beyond the level typically expected for his age. An employee with professional engineering experience had access to the building and later coached that student. "I acted to prevent harm and protect the integrity of this event." A murmur moved through the bleachers. Daniel felt Lily's grip tighten. Claire placed one hand on Noah's notebook as though protecting it. The unfortunate timing of several administrative entries has created confusion, but confusion is not misconduct. For a moment, her explanation worked. Parent near the aisle nodded. Martin Vale leaned toward another judge and whispered behind his hand. Even Dr. Grant's expression remained unreadable. Daniel did not approach the microphone. He pulled out a chair for Noah, then stepped behind him. Dr. Grant began with the notebook. She opened it beneath the document camera and 6 weeks of dated sketches appeared on the projection screen. Crossed-out calculations, grease-dark fingerprints, heat readings, and the red-circled final equation. "No conclusion yet," she said. "Only sequence." Noah lifted one finger toward page 18. That fold was already there before the fair. His voice shook once, then steadied. Dr. Grant showed the rectangular impression beside the blue ink stain. Claire answered immediately. "I conducted an informal safety inspection. Any mark could have occurred then." Martin Vale shifted back in his chair, relieved. Claire continued, "And the phrase secondary load failure was visible on that page, which explains why I used it." The gym released a breath. It seemed briefly that she had repaired the crack in her story. Then Daniel spoke from behind Noah, without touching the microphone. "What time did you inspect it?" Claire looked at him. "The previous evening." Dr. Grant placed the schedule beneath the camera. Noah's presentation slot had been removed at 6:52 the next morning. The red card followed, stamped 6:58. Then the student photograph appeared, showing the screw-seated flush at 6:40. The whispering stopped row by row. Claire folded her hands. A visual image cannot establish mechanical condition. The screw may have appeared secure while already loosened internally. It was careful, plausible. For several seconds, it gave her room again. Daniel looked at the clear sleeve on the table. Then why was the project disqualified before the failure was documented? No anger sharpened his voice. That made the question heavier. Dr. Grant projected the safety report created at 7:17, then the maintenance log showing no call until 7:24. The metal leg of a chair scraped once across the gym floor and went still. Claire's smile disappeared for less than a second. I used professional judgment. Schools cannot wait for an accident before acting. Daniel glanced at Noah before answering. This isn't about humiliating anyone. It's about making sure a child's work can't be buried by a decision made first and justified later. Dr. Grant placed the donor email on the table but did not project it yet. Martin Vale sat forward. Claire saw the page and reached for the microphone. Private communications are being taken out of context. Dr. Grant covered the microphone switch with one hand. Then context will help. She displayed the first line of Martin's message, sent the previous night. Tyler's project should not lose the innovation slot to an unverified entry. Claire's reply appeared beneath it. I will handle eligibility before judging begins. A sound passed through the gym, not outrage yet, but recognition. Claire's face remained controlled. That referred to registration documentation, not sabotage. And I was never alone with Noah's model this morning. Dr. Grant looked toward the district technician beside the projector. He nodded and opened the preserved cloud archive. Daniel placed his hand lightly on the back of Noah's chair, not steering him, only reminding him he was not alone. Noah looked at the dark model waiting on the demonstration table. Before the video, he said, I want to prove I built it. Dr. Grant studied him, then unlocked the controls. 5 minutes. No assistance. Daniel stepped farther back and raised both empty hands where the judges could see them. Noah opened the blue notebook to the circled equation, while the technician loaded the deleted file behind him, its frozen first frame beginning to sharpen across the screen. The deleted file opened behind Noah just as he placed the worn blue notebook beneath the document camera. Its first frame showed Claire standing alone beside his model at 6:47 a.m., one hand pressing page 18 flat beneath the blue plastic tab of her clipboard. The gym went still. The projector fan became audible above the lights, and somewhere in the bleachers, a phone vibrated unanswered against a metal bench. Claire's pen slipped from her fingers and struck the floor. That image does not show sabotage, she said, but her voice had dried to a whisper. Dr. Grant kept her eyes on the screen. No one said it did. Daniel remained 3 steps behind Noah with both hands visible at his sides. The video proved access, not who had loosened the screw. It proved Claire had opened the notebook before claiming she had not. It proved the blue stain, the rectangular impression, and the phrase secondary load were not accidents anyone could dismiss. But Noah had asked to prove something else first. He turned toward the judges and pointed to the circled final equation. When the motor is carrying the full load, it makes 2 sounds, he said. His first breath shook. His second did not. The higher sound comes from the return path. The lower sound comes from the housing. If the connection is right, they overlap before the light steadies. He moved to the model. Dr. Grant repeated the rules into the microphone. No one touches the table except Noah. No one gives him a signal. No one answers for him. Daniel stepped farther back. Claire stared at the notebook as though it had become something alive. Noah removed the silver screw from the evidence sleeve only after the district technician photographed the seal and recorded the transfer. He placed it beneath the load terminal, turned it carefully, then stopped. Not all the way, he explained. Too tight changes the pressure against the plate. A judge leaned forward. How much resistance should the return path show under the new sealed component? The question had not appeared in Noah's notes. He looked at the meter, then at his equation. His finger moved across the red circle. He gave a number, explained the acceptable range, and added, if it goes above that, the left side heats first. The technician checked the meter. Noah was correct. He switched on the power. The motor released a thin high note, then a lower vibration joined beneath it. For 1 second, the cloudy housing remained dark. Noah held his breath. The model lit from the center outward, blue-white lines spreading across the miniature grid until every small bulb burned steadily. The equation remained projected above him. Daniel, in his janitor uniform, stood behind the table. Noah pointed to the circled line. Dr. Grant froze with one hand reaching toward the model. Claire could not speak. The red under review card lay upside down beside the notebook. No applause came at first. Only the hum of the motor, Noah's uneven breathing, and the soft click of Lily releasing the fingers she had locked around Daniel's hand. Then the district technician turned the laptop toward Dr. Grant. The restored video is only part of it. He opened the administrative audit log. At 6:53 a.m., Claire's account had changed Noah's status from eligible to ineligible. 5 minutes later, the red card had been printed. At 7:04, the same account had deleted the classroom test video. The safety report had not existed until 7:17. The sequence appeared on the projector one line at a time. 6:53. Ineligible. 6:58. Under review. 7:04. Video deleted. 7:17. Safety report created. Claire reached for the edge of the table, but her hand trembled before it found support. Martin expressed concern about registration, she said. I made a temporary administrative decision. Dr. Grant displayed Martin Vale's email again, then Claire's reply. I will handle eligibility before judging begins. Martin lowered his eyes. No one in the bleachers whispered now. The decision had come first. The reason had been built afterward. Dr. Grant walked to the microphone and removed the red card from Noah's table. The district recognizes Noah Bennett as the sole author of this project, she said. His disqualification is void. The allegation against him is withdrawn, and his record will be corrected. She turned toward Daniel. Mr. Mercer, there is no evidence that you designed, altered, or coached this project. The public suggestion otherwise was wrong. Daniel looked at Noah, not Claire. The truth belonged to him, he said. Dr. Grant faced the audience again. She announced an independent regrading of the fair, preservation of all records, suspension of Claire's authority pending formal investigation, and immediate review of donor communications affecting student eligibility. Then she apologized to Noah by name. Noah closed the blue notebook against his chest and whispered, What about the other kids? Dr. Grant paused. Which other kids? Anyone marked ineligible before they got to explain. The question traveled farther through the gym than any accusation could have. Justice had begun with one equation and one boy finally heard. But as Lily looked up at Daniel beneath the bright stage lights, the choice waiting for him was no longer whether to step forward, it was what he would build after the door had finally opened. The bleachers emptied more quietly than they had filled. Parents gathered coats without meeting Claire's eyes. Students carried their projects past the stage, and the motor on Noah's table cooled with small metallic ticks beneath the fluorescent lights. Claire was escorted to the district office without a scene, her access badge sealed in an evidence envelope while the investigation remained open. Martin Vale's donor credentials were suspended from all judging activities, and every message between sponsors and staff was preserved for review. By Monday morning, the word ineligible had disappeared from Noah's student record. A signed district letter replaced it, stating that the authorship allegation had been unsupported and improperly entered. Dr. Grant read the correction aloud to Noah in the principal's office before placing the original in his hands. This belongs to you, she said. Noah folded it once and slipped it inside the worn blue notebook. The same cover he had once held like a shield now rested open on the table between adults who were finally listening. The district ordered an independent regrading of every project affected by administrative removal over the previous 3 years. 2 students were restored to the official record. One family received a written apology after learning their daughter's project had been excluded following a donor complaint. New rules required 2 signatures for any disqualification, written notice to the student, preservation of all test footage, and an appeal before judging closed. Daniel asked that no child's name be announced during the review. Correct the record, he told the board. Don't make them relive the embarrassment to prove you fixed it. At the public meeting, Claire's empty chair remained beside the district attorney's representative and the independent investigator. Daniel could have described every look, every whisper, every moment his uniform had been treated like evidence against him. Instead, he spoke for less than 2 minutes. A procedure that depends on the right adult being kind is not protection, he said. It has to work even when nobody important is watching. Dr. Grant lowered her pen. For several seconds, the boardroom was silent, not from shock, but because everyone understood the difference. Weeks later, she offered Daniel a position in the district's engineering initiative, with an office, a higher salary, and a title close to the one he had left years before. He thanked her and declined. "I don't want to return to the life I had," he said, "but I'd like to use what I know." The old storage room beside the science wing was cleared of broken desks and dried paint cans. Daniel repaired the workbenches after his custodial shift, Lily sorting washers into glass jars while Noah labeled drawers in careful block letters. Dr. Grant found funding for safety equipment, but Daniel refused to let the room become another program reserved for students with polished applications. The sign above the door read "The Open Bench." Any student could bring something broken, unfinished, or misunderstood. They would not be given answers. They would be given tools, time, and the right to explain what they had tried. Noah became the first student mentor, though Daniel made sure an adult remained responsible for every decision. On opening afternoon, Noah placed his blue notebook inside a clear display case only after making a copy for himself. Beside it lay the silver screw in its signed evidence sleeve and the upside-down red under review card. They were no longer symbols of suspicion. Together, they showed what happened when small details were protected long enough to tell the truth. Lily stood beside Daniel as the room filled with the scent of sawdust, machine oil, and fresh paint. She looked at the repaired tools hanging above his bench. "Are you an engineer again?" she asked. Daniel watched Noah help a younger student test a hand-built lamp without touching the switches for him. Then he looked down at his daughter. "I never stopped being your dad." She leaned against his arm, satisfied with the answer. Near closing time, a boy appeared in the doorway carrying a broken box fan with one blade wrapped in tape. He looked at Daniel's janitor uniform, then at the tools, unsure whether he belonged there. Daniel pulled out an empty stool. "What sound did it make before it stopped?" The boy set the fan on the bench. Around them, voices faded as students leaned closer to listen. Blue-white light from Noah's model reflected across the worn notebook and onto the open bench sign. And in that gentle silence, dignity needed no announcement. Kindness had simply been given enough time to become justice.